great about that, other than trying to help people who are in a state of invasion. Welcome back to the Immigration Answers Show. My name is Jim Hacking. This is episode 724 of the Immigration Answers Show. Today is December 11th, Wednesday, the 11th of December, 2024. How's everybody doing? How's your week going? Going well, I hope. Today's my last day of working. How about that? 3-day work week. Not bad, eh? I'm going to Vero Beach, Florida tomorrow. Nor has her softball tryouts for Team USA, so that's pretty exciting. Hopefully we'll get some good weather and get to hang out. I think it's only about 70 there, so I don't know if we'll be getting in the old ocean, but it should be fun. How are all you guys doing? I see a lot of our friends are here today. Now listen, this is going to be a special episode of the Immigration Answer Show. You know, when I was a kid, they would always tell you on the afternoon, the after school special, or on nights, some nights they said, tune in this week to a very special episode. Well, today we do have a very special episode because we have a guest with us today. And it's not, we've had guests on here before, obviously, but I've been wanting for a long time to have someone come on and talk with us about the psychological effects of our immigration system and sort of how it's going, how it's not going, how it could be improved, and sort of the psychological effects that it's taking on people. So I was very pleased to come across a lady named Aimee Miller. She's a licensed clinical social worker, and she works with immigrant communities, and she's going to tell us all about her background. And I have an introduction here for her that I will pull up on screen. Just give me 1 minute, and then we'll go ahead. This is very fancy. Just so Aimee knows, we don't usually have slides like this, but Maho's been working hard on the slides, and they look really nice. So I want to make sure to get to each of them. Let's go ahead. No, that's not what I want. Let me share screen. Slide number 2. Here we go. Aimee Miller is a bilingual licensed social worker with expertise in evaluating and treating a wide range of mental health issues in traditional and non-traditional social work settings. Aimee has extensive experience working with survivors of domestic violence, veterans, geriatric and immigrant populations in both clinical and program development roles. She is currently the owner of Interconnect. It's an Interconnect Counseling and Consulting LLC, where she and her team conduct mental health evaluations and provide expert testimony for immigration cases for people in Florida, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Tennessee, Texas, and Virginia. She also trains legal teams in trauma-informed interviewing and care. That's something I think we could work on here at Old Hacking Immigration Law. Let me go ahead and pull Aimee up. Aimee, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm very excited to have you here. How did you start working with immigrant communities?
It was almost happenstance. I am married to someone from Ecuador, and he was actually in the United States on a J-1 visa. And so after he finished his PhD, he had to return to Ecuador for a couple of years, and we were young, had no kids, so I went with him. And when we came back, after about 5 years, I wanted to continue working with the Latino population. I wanted to continue using my Spanish, and I wanted to be able to use my clinical skills. And all those things kind of came together, and I was given an opportunity at Human Rights First out of Washington, D.C., to work with asylum seekers and develop the social services component of their legal program.
All right. And so what is a licensed clinical social worker?
Oh, my headphones cut out. Can you repeat that?
What is a licensed clinical social worker?
So a licensed clinical social worker is someone who has their master's in social work, In other countries, social work is a lot different than it is in the United States. Social workers in the United States, many of them are able to provide therapy, mental health evaluations, and mental health treatment. And so you have to have a master's in social work, and there's years of training that you have to do on top of that in order to be able to get your independent license.
I remember, so my sister, I told you, is an LCSW, and I remember that she had to do all this, I called it free work or slave labor, having to work under other people's licenses. So I do know that licensed clinical social workers have to go through a lot of training and do a lot of work hours before they're really able, like you said, to get their own independent license. So how do you spend your time?
These days, as you mentioned in my bio, I conduct mental health evaluations for immigration cases. I have 2 individuals who are now working with me, so I also supervise and train them. And this past year, we've recently launched developing and providing trauma-informed interviewing trainings for legal teams, both in the immigration area and non-immigration area.
So what has been your experience in dealing with different immigrant populations, from the kinds of things that they're dealing with on a individual psychological level?
The individuals I see tend to be applying for asylum, hardship waivers, U visas, T visas, so a lot of humanitarian type cases. And what we usually see is extensive histories of trauma beginning in their country of origin. And a lot of times when they get here, they're also sometimes subjected to abuses, hardships, or crimes. So in the cases that we evaluate, there's a lot of major depressive disorder, a lot of anxiety, a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder, and their ability to cope with it depends on a lot of factors. One of them being the political environment, one of them being their access to mental health care, cultural beliefs about mental health, as well as the social support that they have around them.
And just for our people watching who don't know, what is trauma?
Trauma is what happens. So the definition of trauma is basically when something happens to you that it's so overwhelming that it overwhelms your capacity to cope. Frequent traumas that come to mind are being the victim of an armed robbery, being verbally or physically or sexually abused as a child, having a loved one die unexpectedly or violently. And so the definition of trauma is quite large, but that overwhelming one's ability to cope is a key component of that.
And for people that have experienced trauma, putting aside the immigration piece, what are some ways that they can learn skills to, I don't know if you ever move past trauma, but try to live in a world post-trauma, I guess.
Right. So the goal of trauma treatment in general is twofold. One is helping your body learn again what it feels like to be safe. And so a lot of times people with trauma have difficulty sleeping. They may have disruptions in appetite. There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of GI distress because your body is constantly activated thinking that something bad is going to happen again. And so it's teaching your body that you're safe and what it feels like to be safe. The other portion is processing those traumatic memories. So like you mentioned, you never forget what happened, but processing them in a way where it's a more normal memory in your brain instead of those flashes of images or phrases that just kind of overwhelm you as almost if you're reliving it. And for people who may not have access to therapy, one of the things I always recommend to get them started is meditation, yoga, physical exercise, all those types of things. You can at least start, help your body relearn what it feels like to be relaxed and help your body release some of that residual tension and stress that tends to occur after a traumatic incident.
I'm really glad you mentioned the meditation, because I was going to ask you, like, for people that can't afford therapy or don't have access to it at the moment, what are some practical things that you can do? And I'm glad you brought up meditation and yoga and sort of things with the body, because one of the most powerful books that I've ever read on trauma was The Body Keeps the Score. I'm sure you're familiar. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a very disturbing book. Everybody who's listening, don't read it all in one sitting. That's all I'll say. I could literally only read one chapter a week because I was so sad reading it, and hearing these stories of trauma, and then sort of hearing about how a lot of the medical community really fought to use medicine only as the main approach to dealing with trauma, and sort of maybe even like over medicating people where they were sort of like zombies. So the book is phenomenal. It's sort of like the 20-year battle on how to get trauma even recognized as an issue that people deal with, if that makes sense. But you want to talk about the body keeping the score as a book, and the body keeping the score as a concept.
Right. No, I mean, and I think the idea of the trauma living in the body is exactly what tends to happen a lot of times. And I think the next level of what mental health therapists are trying to get recognized is what's called chronic and complex trauma, for those who experienced interpersonal abuse for a large portion of their life. They may not technically meet the criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder, but it's there, but it's just so infused to their being that it impacts almost every aspect of their life.
And what is the goal of therapy? So some people I know who've been through trauma sometimes tend to say things like, oh, I've already dealt with that, or, oh, that's in the past. And what are the benefits of working with a therapist or an LCSW to like process your pain or your trauma now?
Okay. So a lot of times when people tell you it's all in the past, I try not to think about it. I just want to forget it. They're trying to avoid it. And what tends to happen is that may work for the short period of time, but as life gets more complicated, or if there's any additional trauma, it's right there waiting to be reactivated. And so a lot of times people have difficulties with interpersonal relationships. There's a lot of chronic difficulties that can result because of this avoidance, trying to just forget and put it in a box and put it away. And the benefits of therapy is really the integration of the memories, and also putting the power back with the person and telling their story, proving to themselves that they can overcome it. Because if they're avoiding things to try to protect themselves from those memories, from those sensations, for those reactions, they may not be living a full life because they're living more out of fear. I mean, I've worked with survivors of armed robberies that almost don't leave their homes because they're terrified to. So they no longer go bowling with their friends, even during the day. They no longer go out to eat. They may keep their kids in the house because they're afraid something's going to happen to them. So people who can sometimes just build these little boxes where they live to protect themselves, but that also limits the sources of joy and kind of what things that give life meaning.
Right. And so this is my regular plug for therapy for people who've been through trauma. I think therapy is very, very powerful. I just finished up with a therapist. We worked together for just about 10 years. And when I was a kid, I've talked about this on the show before. I was the victim of a trauma at the hands of our neighborhood priest. And it took a long time for me to deal with that. And I totally know what you're saying about sort of that, numbing things, or, avoiding things, and just like having a disconnected life. And to be able to go through therapy, and we actually spent time where I was like picturing myself talking to myself as a young person. And it took me a long time to figure out that I didn't deserve what happened to me, or that I didn't do anything that caused what happened to happen to me. So I'm sure that people who either have come, up from South America or Central America, or who've experienced trauma like FGM back home, I know that these are the kinds of things that really can throw people for a loop.
Right. And it's even harder for a lot of people to enter therapy when it's childhood-based trauma as well, because of that shame, that fear. I've done something wrong. And a lot of times people avoid therapy because they're afraid that the therapist is going to think they've done something wrong or judge them in some way.
Yeah.
But
so how do you, let's focus on immigration, and specifically maybe immigration court and the sort of the services that you provide. I definitely want to talk about how you have lawyers and law firms learn to talk about trauma and those kinds of things with people. But how do you make sure, either as a lawyer or as a therapist or a advisor, how do you make sure not to re-traumatize someone going through the court system? I mean, because deportation, like if you've been abused, or if you've been the victim of crime or the victim of bullies or coyotes or whatever, if you've been a victim, then to go through the immigration court, I mean, it's certainly not the same thing, but it's certainly traumatic. I mean, you have someone there who's paid by the federal government to try to kick you out of the country. You have a judge who used to have that job, most likely. The odds are really stacked against you, and it's you, little old you, trying to stay in the United States. And if you're having to retell why you deserve asylum, then by definition, you are talking it even a whole lot more broadly than we just talked about with the fear of telling a therapist, much less a court reporter, the public who's ever sitting there, or the judge and the DHS attorney.
Right. The immigration process, as you mentioned, it's innately re-traumatizing, and people are a lot of times defined by their victimization, so they're having to talk about it over and over and over again. And so one of the things I work to do in my sessions is to give the client as much power as possible. When they come to me, it's a voluntary. I mean, they can stop at any time. They usually don't, but they can. I let them know if at any time we need to take a break. If you're not ready to talk to me about something, we need to table it to the next session. Let me know. I have no problem with that. And if they're not ready to talk about the next session, we'll see what we do with that, and we'll see how we work around it. And so I try to give them as much power as possible. The other thing is I remind them the purpose why we're doing what we're doing, because it's hard. The evaluation process for immigration cases is a lot harder in my mind than actual therapy, because it's like, hi, nice to meet you. Like, we're going to talk about every bad thing that happened in your life. So it's intense. But by letting them go at their own pace, by checking in with them throughout the session, how you doing? Do we need to take a break? How you feeling? And then providing some time to decompress at the end of the session, talk about their plans afterwards, provide a little bit of education regarding some of their experiences. The evaluation itself tends to be a gateway to therapy, because people prove to themselves that they could do it. And I think that some immigration attorneys and other advocates get a little worried, which is why I started doing the trainings because they don't know how to talk about the trauma. They don't want to make it worse. And it's resulted in some organizations I consulted with, the attorneys kind of completely pull back. Well, I didn't want to re-traumatize them, so we didn't talk about it. The problem is when they get to court, when they get to the asylum officer, they're going to have to talk about it. So it's better for them to practice in a safe place with the therapist, with their advocate, with their attorney, than to have to do it for one of the first times with opposing counsel.
Right. So you're absolutely right. I mean, when I ended up suing the people that sort of enabled my thing to happen, and I remember I had to go in for a psychiatric evaluation, and that was much harder than therapy, because it's only, it's 2 hours and you got to get to the chase, and it's hard. So can you tell us about some success stories you've had, or some cases where you feel like you and your team have been able to make a difference in an immigrant's case, or even in just dealing with that immigrant or helping them to deal with their things?
We tend to get hired a lot by some larger law firms that do pro bono work. And those tend to be clients who are highly traumatized, really low resourced. And the reports that we write and the testimony we give on the stand, a lot of times has really helped explain some of the clients' behaviors, the gaps that they've had in their memory due to the trauma and other difficulties that they have had, which helps, from what the attorneys have told us, provides the context for the judge, helps them better understand the impact of the abuses or persecution they experience have had on them and continues to have on them, because sometimes clients will present differently based on culture, based on the traumas they've experienced and their comfort talking about those, including clients getting agitated. Why is the client getting agitated on the stand? Well, you're making them talk about the only thing they want to do is forget. And so for some clients, that's their go-to defense mechanism.
we had a case in the office about a month ago where this guy waited 6 or 7 years for his asylum interview at the asylum office. He hired us to file a lawsuit for him. We filed the lawsuit for him. We got him ready for his interview. And the morning of, he said to the attorney who showed up in Chicago, I can't go in there. I just can't go in there. And she said she was sort of flustered. She was a newer attorney. She said, well, let's go for a walk around the block. And what she ended up doing was saying, hey, you spent a lot of money for us to come up here. My boss is really expecting us to win this thing. So for me, will you go inside and just do this? And he did. And then he got approved for asylum. So yeah, it was a very brave moment on his part for sure. And I think that's one thing that we probably need to talk about more, is that it takes real bravery. When Trump and Jeff Sessions came into office, they were accusing immigration lawyers of like making up frivolous asylum claims, and they were making it like everybody has a fake case. But I think it takes real bravery to stand here and say, yeah, it's not safe for me to go back, and here's why, and letting people know what happened to them.
Right. No, it's terrifying for them, because a lot of times the people who have experienced the abuses and traumas they are fleeing from have been told it's not real, or even in their home countries. Like, it may be the first time they're actually telling people what they truly experienced instead of the general overview.
So let's take a typical case like we might have around here. So one of the cases we have a lot of, and we've actually had success on from an asylum standpoint, and just for everybody who knows, you guys have heard me talk about this on the show before, but sometimes what makes a great asylum case is really bad facts, right? So the lawyers have to be careful not to get too excited and can't just jump over the bad facts. But one of the ones that we've had a lot of success with are FGM cases. So let's say that we had a lady who was a victim of FGM back home in her country in Sudan. And now she's in the United States. Her immigration status has run out. She's filed an asylum claim. And we decide that it might be a good idea. She's having a hard time articulating all of it. We've gotten the gist of it, but we sort of need your help to sort of flesh that out. And maybe we're going to ask you to submit a report in support of her asylum application, or let's do that. And then after that, we can talk about court. Yeah.
So what would the process be? If they were working with me,
if she came over to you and we hired you, what would the process be like of working together, like the three of us, you, me, and her?
Right. So for asylum cases specifically, if there is, of course, like a declaration or I-589, like already drafted, I and many other therapists will request a copy just so we have an idea of what we're looking at, what kind of the focus is. And the client calls our office directly. They usually actually talk to me because I like to screen all the cases personally and discuss the process. Like, we're very clear regarding this is the process for the evaluation. This is what to expect during the evaluation, which is basically me asking you a bunch of questions about your life, and the paperwork that they'll have to fill out ahead of time. And then during the session, we review their entire life story, even stuff not necessarily related to the asylum claim, because if there was traumas even before that, those traumas can impact how somebody reacts to future traumas due to the cumulative nature. So we want to be able to explain that in the report, and any difficulties for how their life has been since they came here, and anything that they continue to struggle with. After that second appointment, we finish drafting the report. And we send, if they speak English and read English, we'll send it to them for their review. We want to make sure that everything is actually correct. And then after we get it back from them, we send it to the attorney, or we send it to you for your review, making sure that we don't have any spelling, grammar errors, and that everything is very clear. And then after that, we sign off on it.
So let's say that sadly we had the most evil asylum officer of all time, and they reject the case and then refer it over to the immigration court. What is your involvement at that point?
Right. So if the attorney wants us to testify, then we're available, we arrange for that. We usually meet with the attorney. Well, no, I shouldn't say usually. We always meet with the attorney ahead of time to discuss where their focuses are, and a lot of times provide some education to the attorneys as well. And what we've been qualified as experts as before, things that may have not worked because the DHS has pushed back on it, and to make sure that we're on the same page regarding what the questions are and the focuses are, knowing that the judges and DHS attorneys may ask us other questions based on the report.
And tell me about your experience being in court. How do the judges treat you? How do the OPLA attorneys treat you?
It's interesting. For the most part, the judges have been phenomenal. I have had one that was not, and that was more recently. And then DHS attorneys has kind of transitioned over the years. So prior to, let's say during the first Trump administration, they were a lot more aggressive, but still manageable. And then they've been a lot more passive recently. And so
now it'll probably
swing. It just kind of varies, huh?
Now it'll probably swing back.
It's probably going to swing back. So I'm kind of psychologically preparing myself for that. But it really depends on the DHS attorney and just kind of how much they want to fight something.
What has it been like? I assume there have been some cases that didn't go your client's way. What is the effect that it has on people when they actually end up getting deported back to one of these scenarios, or when you talk to them after they've lost their case?
I don't hear a lot from clients, whether they won or whether they lost. I'll sometimes talk to their attorneys and they'll tell me after the fact. But I've done therapy with individuals who were being deported in a different role that I had. And it's difficult. It's incredibly anxiety provoking. A lot of times, as you mentioned, because of the years that they're here, they have lives, they may have families, they have jobs, and they're leaving all of that to go to a country where, if it's asylum, they're fearful of persecution.
Right.
A country they may have not been for over a decade or two. And so there's a lot of that uncertainty and fear that's difficult to cope with.
All right. So talk to us about this new aspect of your practice where you're training lawyers and paralegals. Because frankly, some of our paralegals get a little bit anxious themselves. And today someone was saying to me, I'm one of these people that I feel the emotions of the people that I'm with. Yeah. And so talk to us sort of about how to be empathetic and also how to be protective of your space as the team working with the person.
Right. And then that's a big challenge. And so I like that you talked about your one team member, because that empathy is going to really help her in connecting, like understanding where the client's coming from, but it can also be really challenging. And so when we do our trainings, we talk about the entire interview process from the beginning to the end in the second session. The first session, we focus only on trauma. What is trauma? What it looks like, what secondary trauma looks like, and also self-care. Because as you mentioned, if you're exposed over and over again to really difficult traumatic content, that can also have an impact on the person who's hearing it. And so we talk about different ways of asking questions, how to get over that fear, and then also how to regroup afterwards. And that's a practice that different ways of regrouping include debriefing with colleagues. It can include a mindfulness practice or something that you do after difficult interviews to kind of, in your mind, kind of put them away because you have notes. It's there. You're not going to forget that. And also what you do outside of work. And so for individuals who are exposed to a lot of trauma through their work, I speak to supervisors regarding the diversification of tasks. Is it possible to spread out the load so someone's not getting all the FGM cases or all the VAWA cases? So they have some space to breathe and work on something that isn't so trauma intensive.
All right. So I have one other question. It's a bit of a curveball, but I'm sure you're going to be able to handle it. It's not exactly on this topic, but it's something that comes up on this show. And you just mentioned the VAWA cases. So what should we be thinking about when we talk to people who are in a situation of violence, like with their partner, like right now? Like literally sometimes people call the show or people call the office And obviously, I always say the first thing is to make sure they're safe, like in the
Yes.
moment, long term. But what should that conversation look like from a attorney standpoint and
Yeah.
from people that just come into contact with those people?
Right. And so if they're still in the relationship for which they're applying for VAWA, yeah, I mean, safety is key. If they're safe at the moment they're talking to you, ask them what's the best way to communicate with you. And they may say, oh, you can just call me. Well, does your significant other check your phone? Do they check your email? Do they check your texts? If so, do you have a friend that you trust that know what's going on? So we can communicate through them. I have an individual right now that I'm working with who said, my wife checks everything. Can you send it to me in the mail? Because no one really cares about my mail. And so we're going that route with getting him the paperwork because he doesn't want to fill out anything online because he feels like they could track it. And so there's a lot of really good safety plans online. And I think a lot of individuals in these situations don't realize that there are domestic violence shelters and domestic violence crisis lines. Now, the domestic violence crisis lines aren't necessarily for when you're in a dangerous situation and your life is being threatened. That's 911. But they could tell you about the resources available in your area for survivors of domestic violence. They could tell you about what a personal protection order is, how it works, where to get them, where are the shelters in your area that are specifically for individuals experiencing domestic violence. And so I always and when I do the trainings, I provide the attorneys with these resources as well, that there's at least like a basic list of resources, whether it be usually including the domestic violence hotline, federally qualified health centers, which are throughout the country and provide low cost medical and mental health care, homeless shelters, and there you go, and other such resources. Because if the individual's in crisis and acutely not safe, they're not going to be able to engage with the legal process.
All right. So is there anything trauma-wise that we haven't talked about, or that resources that are out there for people that you think might be helpful? If let's do that, and then we'll see if anybody in the waiting room has a question specifically for you, and then I'll let you go.
Yeah. I think trauma-wise we've covered quite a bit today. The one resource I did want to mention that I had forgotten to email you, it's called Open Path Collective. And if you just typed in the search browser, Open Path Collective, it's going to come up. And it's a really good resource for more affordable counseling. And so it's between $30 to $70, depending on the counselor, which is still a significant amount of money, but much less than other private practitioners. And they tend to have people who speak a variety of languages. And I am referring now a lot of clients who are interested in therapy who don't have health insurance to those resources, because it can be a little bit quicker to get in as opposed to some of the busier medical and mental health centers.
Awesome. Well, I put the link to Open Path Collective. That's a nice resource. So we'll have to check that out even for some of our clients. And then is telehealth a thing? That's okay?
I mean, there's people doing evidence-based treatments for trauma via telehealth, EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization. Sorry, I have a cold, so I can't quite get it out. EMDR therapy, ART therapy, and a lot of people are still doing telehealth.
Awesome. Okay, great. So how do people, if they want to get a hold of you, if they're a lawyer, or if they're someone go through the immigration process and they think that you might be able to help them, what's the best way to reach you?
The best way to reach me would be through my email address, or also the phone number listed on my website. My website's immigrationpsycheval.com, and the phone number is 734-596-5607.
All right. So does anybody in the waiting room have a question specifically for Aimee? If you do, raise your hand. Otherwise, I will let her go with our deep gratitude. What a great session this was. I really appreciate it. I think it was really helpful. I was just thinking that I'm going to have my whole team watch it, all the lawyers and the paralegals. I think they'll get a lot out of it. I think this is something that people need to talk about more and more. And I want to thank you one more time for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for the invitation. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Aimee. We'll see you later.
Take care.
Hope you feel better. All right, all right. That was, that stuff always bums me out a little bit, talking about all that stuff and trauma and everything else. It's sad, sad stuff. Hey, but you know what makes me happy? Hoolie's antlers. Hoolie's got her antlers on. What the heck is going on?
I do.
I like it.
Today I made something fun. Look,
I like it.
a little bit different.
Those are great.
Christmas vibes.
All right. Well, we got about a half hour left. We'll see how many we can knock out quickly. And let's start with Kwaku. Kwaku, what's up? You're on mute, brother.
Hi, Jim.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. What you got?
Okay, so a friend of mine have a situation. So he's in Ghana and the wife is in the U.S. And they filed I-130 and the USCIS have approved it and waiting for an interview. But in the process of putting their stuff, like getting ready in case the interview letter comes out, so they are fully prepared, he realized that he made a typo error in a date.
What kind of date?
So they are picture for evidence to show they prove the relationship. He was trying to say our first time meeting in 2018, which all the affidavits relative and everybody wrote stated that they met in 2018, but just labeling the picture, he made a mistake and he didn't realize the USCIS approved everything until recently. He was putting stuff together, then he realized that.
So what year did he put?
2019, which is 8 close to the 9 on the keyboard. And
sure. So I would just show the I would just send a letter making the correction. I don't think anybody's going to care.
Okay, and I was also thinking that the wife also have itineraries from passport and immigration border stamps from Ghana showing he was here on the 18th. Would that help to, if the question comes up, would that help to clarify things?
Sure.
Okay. And one more question. That is a news I saw today that especially the Vermont Center, they have terminated a lot of the employees' contract. So that means there's going to be a lot of delays. But I don't know how true that is. So I'm like, let me ask Jim the answer. He probably...
I haven't heard anything about that. I'll look into it. I usually get my immigration news a day or two later because I'm trying not to read the newspaper. I'm just getting my news from the American Immigration Lawyers Association. So I'll check that out. But, you know, if you're asking me, Jim, do you think things are going to start slowing down under Trump? I definitely do.
Okay. So you think we should just leave you should just not write the letter and keep the...
I'd write a letter and point out the mistake that you made, but...
So write to MVC now?
Wherever it's pending.
Okay, now USCIS approved. He sent all the documents to MVC and he's been DQ'd. So, okay.
Thanks, Quacker. See you, buddy.
The thing is, he hasn't sent that pictures to MVC yet. It was the one he sent to USCIS.
Right. It's okay. Just send a cover letter explaining what's going on. That's all he's got to do.
Okay.
Bye, buddy. Right. Hey, the Queen of the Yardies is here. Donna is here. Donna, I might have a big announcement for you and all the Yardies here in a couple of days, but I can't tell you what it is yet. It's sort of secret for a couple of days. So if it comes through, I will let you know. But you're going to be happy. All the Yardies are going to be happy if this happens. Nurse Laura says, for anyone who is struggling, please know it's not a matter of anyone else having it worse than you. Yeah. That's something I told myself a lot of times was, there were people that were abused worse than me. There were people that were molested worse than me. So no, I'm not going to Jamaica. I wish, Alejandra, although I should. I can't tell you, Don, I got to wait. It's not official. Seeking help is a good thing, even if you don't think your health is as bad as someone else's. I think that's right. That's a great point, Nurse Laura. All right. Elaine is here. Hello, Elaine.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. What's up?
Well, I got my green card through Wawa in 2023 in June.
Okay.
And I think I can apply for in June 2026 for citizenship.
Yeah. Oh, where do you go? Yep.
Yes, and so I want to apply for citizenship in 2026 in June, 3 months before June will be the date, isn't it? My question is, let's say if I hire you, there is an interview for citizenship?
Always.
Shit.
Always.
Hello?
I don't know what's going on. Harshit is here. Hello.
Hey Jim, how are you? Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine. How you doing?
All well. So we've been planning to get my girlfriend up here. We're planning to get married in the next couple of months.
Great.
She has completed her master's from the UK. She's an Indian citizen. I'm currently on F1 OPT, working in New Jersey, but my employer has, plans to petition for my H1B. Now the thing is that my girlfriend also currently has a $40,000 loan for her degree that she completed in the UK. So I was just wondering what are some of the good ways to get her here while also being mindful about burning not too much of cash.
So right now she's overseas.
Yeah. So she's here with me on a tourist visa. It's only been 10, 11 days. But we've been thinking how to get her here so that we can stay together, and we're also exploring day one CPT programs, but I'm not so sure about what the best way is for us.
Hold on, exploring what?
Day one CPT programs.
The what?
The day one CPT programs. So
No,
they are essentially
no day one CPT. Do you know what day one CPT is? Day one CPT is an invitation to never get an immigration benefit for the rest of your life. No one should do day one CPT ever, never. Don't do it. They'll tell you that it's okay, but it's not. Don't do it. It'll keep you from getting a green card or an H-1B or anything else.
All right. So what are some of the good ways that you would recommend?
What's your status in the United States?
I'm currently on F1 OPT, but my employer has plans to petition for H1B. Of course, that is probabilistic, but yeah.
Are you on STEM OPT or first OPT or what?
The first OPT, yes.
Are you in a STEM field though? Will you have 3 chances at it?
I'm in a STEM field.
And how far did she go in school?
She completed her master's in the UK. So in terms of years, we can say 15th.
So if you want her to be with you, I would think that the most important thing is either an F1 for her, an F2 for her, or wait to see if you get picked in the H-1B and get her an H-4, but that wouldn't be till next year.
Yes. Also, the thing is that we would like her to work here as well.
Well, people in hell want ice water. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. That's not going to happen. How's she going to come work?
Yeah. So not immediately, but eventually, maybe in a couple of years. That's also fine.
So maybe come get a master's here and then do OPT herself.
Eventually. Okay. So you would recommend an F1?
An F1 for her is what I would recommend. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Thank you so much, Jim.
See you, Harshit. Bye, buddy. All right. Looks like Elaine came back. Hello?
Hey, how are you? Yes, I want to apply for citizenship.
Oh, my God. This guy. He's got some cheap-ass phone. I don't know what's going on. No one is here. Hello, no one. You're on mute.
Hi, Jim. Can you hear me?
I can. What's up?
Oh, I just called because I saw a news. Maybe you've been talking about it before, but Supreme Court rules that DHS has full discretion to revoke immigrant visas.
Yeah.
Has that always been the case? I mean, what are your thoughts on the ruling and how it's going to make things even worse for immigrants, I guess? Thank you.
Yeah. So a great question. Thank you for the question. So we're in the stage of things now where whenever the Supreme Court issues a ruling about immigration, I sort of get nervous, right? I get worried, oh my God, what's the worst thing they're doing right now, right? So I was pleasantly surprised yesterday when I first saw that Justice Jackson, who was appointed by Joe Biden, was the one who wrote the piece, and it was a 9-0 decision. So in my mind, there wasn't anything earth-shattering or surprising in the ruling. I don't think it's going to have any real effect on certainly on attempts by DHS to revoke a previously approved I-130. So what we're talking about is where USCIS approves an I-130, and then they figure out that somebody shouldn't have gotten that I-130 approved. Like between the issuance of the I-130 approval and maybe the issuance of the green card, some facts come to light that USCIS now says we have changed our mind, and we need to undo the approved I-130. They've been doing that for as long as I've been an immigration attorney. There's nothing new there. That's no sea change. Like I was worried when I read the opinion. Like I'm worried they're just going to start making things up. But this is something that was voted on 9-0. The 3 liberals joined with the 6 conservatives because it's such a clear question. I guess there were a couple circuit courts that said you could challenge a denial on something that's discretionary in federal court. But to me, if USCIS has the discretion to decide something, then it's really, really hard to challenge it in court. So I'm not too worried about this decision.
All right. Thank you, Jim.
You got it, buddy. Good question. Thanks so much. Huli, let's add that one to the podcast. Speaking of the podcast, are you guys checking out our podcast, The Best of the Immigration Answer Show? We need to get some links up in here, Huli, so that people can leave us a review of the podcast. So the podcast drops every Friday. We take the best calls from the show and we put it out there on the podcast. Well, that's fun. I think Laura's the only Laura. I don't know why you'd listen because you hear them all as it's happening, but maybe you pick up more the second time. I think I do listen to things the second time. I would say that maybe over the holidays, we could issue Aimee's episode as a special standalone podcast. I think that would be worthwhile. By the way, everyone, I'm going to shoot some videos tomorrow. So if you want to leave me a comment, I got to do 3 or 4 before I leave town. Oh, no, I was supposed to do that today. Oh, darn it. Oh, well, I'll have to do them on Monday. So if you got videos you want me to do, let me know between now and Monday. I'm happy to talk about birthright citizenship someday, Big Al. That's no problem. We got all the Yardies are here. Even Ryan's here. Donna and Ryan are talking to each other. That always makes me happy. By the way, I read an article today that says hanging out with your mother, if you're able to, hanging out with your mother means your mother lives longer. How about that? The more you hang out with your mom, the longer she lives. Now, Yusuf, my son, he's always yelling, causation or correlation? I don't know, but I like the sentiment. And pretty soon my mom is going to be living by herself. My mom has never lived by herself. So I think that headline caught my attention on purpose or for a reason, because Allah wants me to spend more time with my mother. So I'm going to try to do that. Spend more time with my mother. That's always good. Good time to spend time with your mother. All right. Cynthia's been waiting. Hello, Cynthia. You're on mute.
Mr. Jim, good evening, sir.
How are you?
I'm okay. Thank you for having me on board.
Of course. What can I do for you?
Yeah, actually, I'm a legal immigrant. I came in with visa. Then I'm on asylum for 4 years now.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I never knew my representative isn't a legal practitioner. So we just find out that he just works under immigration, under political department, but not a legal practitioner. So since last year, I've been telling him that I want them to call me for interview, but he keep on dribbling about it. No, go and be a good citizen. They will give you your documents. So I just find out. So somebody was a friend introduced me to this program. So that's why this is my 3rd time of joining. So I just wanted somebody that will represent me. I want them to call me for interview. I want to like kind of sue for them to call me for an interview through Asylum.
Oh, that's our favorite thing to do.
Yeah, so that's why I'm looking for a good legal practitioner before a friend now asked me to follow up this program. Yes, sir.
Which office has your asylum case? Do you know?
Oh, actually, I reside in Maryland.
So probably Arlington.
Yes, sir. So I don't know the particular office because they will send you many places to go and do your biometrics. I was unfortunate to do close by Silver Spring, but some people can be sent to Virginia, Baltimore, different locations.
Can you send me a copy of what you filed with the asylum office, and then we go from there? Because a lot of times the asylum case needs a lot of work before we sue them. So everybody wants to like sue right away, but we want to make sure the case is strong before we sue them.
Exactly. And to start with, he never wrote any case. Yeah, he kept on telling us, we never wrote, not him. He told us, don't worry, before they call for interview, we're going to sit down. I think there's nothing in the file. Yes.
Wait, but you have a case on file, right?
When we ask him, he will tell us that he has not submitted any case per se, that whenever they call for interview, that's when we will now sit down and write our case. So my friend who has gotten theirs through marriage, so most of them went to him to get their file because in case, they ask them such question. So they found out that there's nothing in the file.
So what you're telling me is that you asked someone for help to file your asylum case, and as we sit here right now, you don't know if there's a case actually on file.
He kept on telling us there's no case. Yes, unless I call for my file. Yes, sir.
So you have no receipt number or anything?
No, I have number. I have renewed my 5 years. I have my 5 years working permit now because I lost it. So renew now. They have to give me the new one.
So here's what I would say. Whatever you have copies of, email it to me and we'll go from there, okay?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
All right. Thank you, Cynthia.
You're welcome. I appreciate for this opportunity.
All right. Have a good night, of course. All right. Ruchi's been waiting since the show started. Ruchi, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Jim. Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, so I want to start out by saying I'm the beneficiary and my husband is the petitioner. And we received an RFE on Affidavit of Support form. And basically it states it's on the basis of not being able to meet the poverty guideline. And I think the reason for that is the tax return that we used for filing all of the documents was under the poverty line, but my husband, he recently started, actually earlier this year, he started a job that is well above the poverty guideline, and we added pay stubs, offer letter, everything, but we still received an RFE. So my question is, what should my next steps be?
Do you want to stay in the United States?
Yes. I am currently in the United States.
I'm saying, do you want to stay here?
Yes.
Find a co-sponsor.
Got it. So can I be the co-sponsor? Because
no, you can't be the co-sponsor.
Okay, even though his current income is above the poverty line?
You need 3 years of being well above. If it's too close to call, if it's one bad year, you're wasting your time and putting your ability to stay in the United States at risk.
Okay, so having a co-sponsor would be better than just filing it again. Okay. Awesome. I think that was my only question.
Bye, Ruchi. See ya.
Thank you.
Yep. DJ's here. Hello, DJ.
How you doing, Jim?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm good. So I'm back again. So my question is, I'm filing I-130 for my stepchild and my stepdaughter. And I was wondering, do we use the A number for my husband's case? He has his, he got his letter for his 4-year extension for his green card yesterday. Yeah. So I was asking, should we use his A number for her application for the I-130, put on the I-130 or no?
Wait, you said he got a 4-year extension letter?
He has his, yes, he just got his 4-year extension letter, and we're trying to file for my stepdaughter, his daughter, an I-130. So we've never filed anything for her, but we always put her on the K-1 visa. But he came alone. He did not come with her. He did not. So
So
But every
how old is
she's
she?
6. She's 6.
Okay, so you're a U.S. citizen. He's got his conditional green card case pending.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I would say go ahead and file an I-130 petition for her and get that thing started.
Okay, but I'm asking, should we use his A number? Because it asks if she has
No, you should file as the U.S. citizen. You should file for it.
Oh, okay. So I shouldn't use his number at all. No, okay.
Oh, because there's a 4-year wait on the children of green card holders. There's a 0-year. I mean, there's a regular wait, but there's a backlog for the children of green card holders. So you should apply for her right away.
Okay, so I shouldn't use any of that. Okay.
Yeah, you as a U.S. citizen should sponsor your stepdaughter.
Okay, and I've been unemployed this year.
Yep.
So can I use 21, 22, and 23 tax returns?
Yeah, but you'll need a co-sponsor because you have to show proof of current employment. And by the time you're not even going to get, by the time you get to that stage, which will be like a year from now, I'll
have another job by then. So I can use, when I get another job next year, I can use that tax return.
We'll see how it goes. If you didn't earn anything in 2023, that'll be trouble. But
no, I'm in 2023. I have 2021, 22, and 23.
So I would say don't worry about that till you have to. Just get the damn I-130 on file.
Okay, is it better to do it online or just paper?
We do it on paper because we don't believe half the crap that gets filed.
They do online. Okay, I was thinking that too because I can just send everything all at once and it'll be done. Okay.
Hey, see ya.
All right, thank you. Have a good one.
Bye. All right. That was DJ. Let's go to Tobago 41. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon. I wanted to ask you a question. I'm filing for my husband. We've been together 16 years, married, 3 years, I have a 10-year-old. He lives in Trinidad and Tobago. I just filed for him. All the process, after waiting the 14 months, everything is going fast. Everything is going through so quickly. But we're waiting for him to get an interview. He needs to do the physical. Should we wait until we get the letter to then schedule for him to do the physical, or should we go ahead and do the letter for the interview? Waiting on the interview, but he has to do a physical. Do they send us a letter to do the physical first, or do we just go ahead and do it and wait for the interview?
This is for an I-130 or an I-129F?
I don't know. The I-130 already been approved. They approved it. I'm already documentary qualified.
Yep.
Everything else is everything just came in a matter of weeks. Like this one, you know what I mean? It's like they approved it, then the next week it went to NVC, then the next week it went to thing, and then the next week you know what I mean? And I don't want to get stuck because everything is just from waiting 14 months. It's just every week something is coming. You know what I mean? It's coming in to do. So should we go ahead and schedule it, or should we
wait? You should wait.
Wait until the interview date.
Wait until they tell you they need it.
Don't they need it? Don't he need it when he go into the interview?
Yeah, that's what I mean. But don't do it now. Wait till you get the interview notice and then do it.
Oh, okay. All right, because I thought we had to do it and then just go to the interview. I understand. Thank you very much. One more question I wanted to ask you, right?
Yep.
I had one concern. If you file, I did everything is up and up. I did everything above the board. Could they? When I did my I-130, I filed my own affidavit of support because I was making good money. I work in healthcare. I made good money. Is that something I should be concerned about if they're going to review cases? Because I sent it. They approved everything, and they gave me my green card, my citizenship through that. But should I be concerned about that?
No.
Okay. All right. Because somebody told me you're not supposed to file for yourself for your affidavit of support.
That's not the kind of thing they're going to be coming after. I don't think you have to worry about that at all.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that's the only thing I have that's negative. Okay. Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
You too. Thank
Teshi's here. Hi, Teshi.
Hi, Jim. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I have a couple of questions. I'm
Can
really
you can
concerned.
you can you come a little closer to your microphone? You don't have to come on camera, but it's sort of hard to hear you.
Yes. So my husband is my sponsor, and I'm the beneficiary. I am from originally South Africa, and I came in the country in 2017, October. I was under the H-2B visa, and for the next 3 years, I completed the visa. During that time, I met my husband in 2019. We dated, and we were living together and traveling together. And we decided to get married, but because of COVID, we couldn't get a date set. And eventually, I really wanted to get married in June during the summer, but the earliest date that they could give us was 6th October 2020. Now, the problem with that is that the 5th of October, I was supposed to leave the country, but we didn't plan it like that. It just happened because of the virus. So since then, we've been married and everything has been fine. We've been living together. So we only started filing in March this year. And the reason was that from watching your shows, I now realize that we actually use notarials. It wasn't a lawyer, but we didn't know anything about that then. We just thought we got a bargain, an affordable lawyer, but it wasn't. So we filed this year in March, and I did my biometrics in April, but it's been kind of stagnant since then. I did get advice whether I should call and find out if my case is at the field office, and I did find out that it was, and I don't know what that means. And I
Nothing.
just want to know in my status account, it says case decision on all of four of my cases. And I want to mention that I did file with my birth certificate together with my medical records. And I just want to know, do you think something's going on with my case?
Well, so did you submit? I know with South Africa, there's a short form birth certificate and a long form. Which did you submit?
Long form.
Long form? Okay. And
Yes.
who did you say filed this? A lawyer or somebody else or what? Who filed it?
What we thought it was lawyers, but now that I'm learning about all the immigration stuff, I believe it's like a company, but it's notarial. They just help you to file. I don't
They don't
believe they are lawyers.
they don't sign anything.
They sign on their behalf. They gave us stuff to sign.
Yeah. What else before it said, well, first of all, what's the date that the update said decisions made on all your cases? When did that happen?
Oh no, decision hasn't been made yet. If they
Hasn't
were
been. Okay.
received,
I
not
think you
yet.
said
They
have been
are
made.
just
Okay.
on they are on the last steps of every case. On
Okay.
I-130 is step number 2, but it says case decision, and everything else is case number 3, but it's also a case decision. And then on 485, it's it's case decision on step 4.
So what was the date of your marriage and what's the receipt date on the I-130 and the 485?
We married on October 6, 2020, and we filed this year, March 28th. And I believe the receipt was um, 6, 12, 12 April.
24.
Because on the 15th, yes, because on the 15th, I got my biometrics notice to do my biometrics on the 29th.
And you haven't gotten your work card.
Nothing. And I realize now that it's outside of processing times.
Sure. Have either of you been divorced before?
No,
Never?
no, we've never been married.
Yeah. Okay. And so if we're looking at the list of fraud indicators, number one, you were out of status at the time that you filed for your green card by years.
Yeah.
So that's high on the fraud list. Is there an age gap or anything?
I'm older 5 years by my husband.
No, that's not a big deal. Any kind of criminal stuff?
Okay, we had a fight after we filed. It wasn't even a fight, it was an argument, and we were drinking. And then a neighbor called the police on us, but they both took the both of us and they put us in jail. We spent a couple of nights in jail and they let us out because neither of us had wanted to file a crime against the other one. But because they found out that I was out of status, they said ICE was coming. So when ICE came, they just told me, since I have a case pending, they were going to release me to go back home, because I told them, no, it was just an argument, one fighting, but the police didn't believe us. They just took us in, both of us. And so I've been under supervision since, and the ICE calls every month, and then every now and then I have to go to the office, but they ask me the same things. Are we still married? Do we still live in the same address? Are things still okay between us? And it's the same thing. And everything has been fine since.
So you sort of left that part out.
Yes.
Well, I mean, that explains it. I think they're just waiting to see if you guys get in another fight, if the marriage breaks up, if they don't have to give you a green card. So just for everybody listening, in a year or two from now, what she just described, ICE would have taken her into custody right then, because they wouldn't wait for the I-130 to be approved, right? So I think I would say it was a monumental mistake to wait this long to file for a green card.
Bad luck. Yeah.
I wouldn't say bad luck. It's just something you should have done a long time ago. So,
well, the notarians, Jim, I'm sorry to cut you off. The reason I'm mad about it, and I realize they're not actually lawyers, is because they said they didn't want to help me file my case without the birth certificate. And it has been holding my case back for so long, because it was really hard to get.
yeah, but sweetheart,
this long to get
sweetheart, say what you want about notarios, but on that one, they're right.
Okay.
So on that, they gave you good advice. You would have been, when you said earlier that the online updates say that you I thought you said that a decision had been made. I was thinking it was because of the birth certificate. So that's like a number one issue with USCIS, South African and Canadian short form, long form birth certificates. Those are easy denials. So actually on that particular thing, they gave you good advice, right? So to me, this is much more about you being out of status, about them worrying about the H-2B program as a way that people have been getting around marriage stuff. So I think that they're probably looking at your case pretty hard. And I think that at some point you're probably going to need a lawyer.
Okay, we were working together. That's where we met at work, and we were living together the whole time. And then we would continue doing so in different country clubs.
Okay. All right. Well, if you need our help, let me know. Okay.
Okay. I just want to ask one more question, Jim.
Sure.
What? Oh, now I forgot. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a great night. All right, everybody. That'll do it for today's show. This was episode 724 of the Immigration Answer Show. Thank you to our guest, licensed clinical social worker, Aimee Miller. We appreciate her coming. Oh yeah, Donnie, you're gonna have to wait a couple days. It's gonna be a couple days, but I will let Donnie. You'll be the first one I let know as soon as I know. And I might do a pop-up show depending on how things go, either on Friday or Saturday. So hope you all have a great night. Otherwise, this will be it, and we'll see you on Monday. Bye, guys. Thanks, Huli. I'm great about that, other than trying to help people who are in a state of invasion.